Have you ever brought up something with someone that they did that bothered you, only to leave the conversation wondering if you were actually the one in the wrong? You brought up something kindly, carefully. Maybe you even took the time to think about exactly what you were going to say in the most emotionally intelligent or most emotionally mature way, but somehow you ended up feeling confused, blamed, shut down, or even mocked. So today, we are going to talk about 6 sneaky ways that emotionally immature people avoid accountability, and then what you can do to stay steady and protect your peace when it happens. Because we don't want to be letting somebody else's lack of emotional awareness or emotional maturity be the reason for us to be thrown off or unsettled or derailed for maybe even the entire day. If you've ever left a conversation like this confused by blame shifting or wondering if you even should have said anything in the first place, then this one's for you. But first, if you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you're back again, always good to have you. My name is Kristina, and I am a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, a speaker, and the author of my book, Drive Your Own Darn Bus. And I help heart-centered humans think better, feel better, live better so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. But before we get into these, let's just get on the same page and understand that emotional immaturity is not a character flaw, and it doesn't mean that someone is broken. It just means that they have an underdeveloped part of their maturity that prevents them from being able to regulate their discomfort, take responsibility, and properly repair connection. And know that some of these patterns don't always look harmful or unhelpful at first. And in fact, they can actually seem completely normal until you start to see them, until you start to become aware of them, and you realize how much you are the one who is over-apologizing, who is over-explaining, who is feeling small and insecure after just coming forward and trying to be authentic and honest and share your needs. And I have to tell you, the last one that I'm going to talk about here was something that was happening really regularly with a guy that I was dating. And I didn't even realize what was going on until I did. And I could recognize the pattern, and then I could learn what I needed to do in response to it so it wouldn't continue to throw me off, derail me, or even honestly make me feel really small and insecure. So let's get right into these. And the first one, which is probably the most obvious one, is they blame shift. You come to them with something that they said or they did that hurt your feelings, that really upset you, and they tell you why it's your fault that they did what they did. You come to them and say, hey, it really hurt my feelings when you yelled at me and started criticizing me and really calling me down. And they say, well, I wouldn't have done it if you hadn't been late. And all of a sudden you're finding that you are now wondering, was I the one in the wrong? But they did this. But what I did was not intentionally trying to hurt them, but they were intentionally trying to hurt me. But they're telling me it was my fault because they reacted like this. Don't take the bait. Stop. Take a second and a breath. Come back to yourself. And then say to them, I hear that. And if you're feeling extra generous, I can understand why that was upsetting for you. But I'd like to come back to talking about how you handled it. Don't let them derail the conversation into making you take responsibility for their inability to manage their emotions. Yes, they could be upset that you were late, but they didn't have to treat you like that as a result. Like I tell my kids, you can be mad, but you can't be mean. Now, if keeping yourself steady in these kinds of situations is something that you want to get better at, not get so sucked into whatever somebody else has going on and how they're reacting, then make sure you grab my 10-minute guided mindfulness exercise. Mindfulness is a fantastic tool for just keeping you more emotionally regulated in general. It is something that you have to practice more regularly, and this guided mindfulness exercise is going to get you on your way to that. It's going to allow you to just stay steady and not get pulled pulled into whatever storm somebody else is having. It's completely free, and the link to that is in the description below. The next way that emotionally immature people avoid accountability is they turn it into a joke. They mock you. They make it something that's funny. You're trying to be honest and vulnerable, and all of a sudden they're laughing at you, mocking you, or making a weird impression of your tone. And this is something that happened with me a few years ago when I was having a conflict with a family member. And I was working really hard to stay really steady, to stay really grounded, to not get reactive, to not get sucked in, to not argue, to not get defensive. And I responded to this person's outburst in a very calm and grounded way. And I thought I had handled it really well. But their reply? Oh, look at me. I'm a therapist and I think I'm so great. I can just stay here and stay all calm and steady, and I think I'm better than everyone else. And this was a grown up. This was a very grown up human being. And I just remember sitting there thinking, what is happening right now? I don't understand what is going on. But the truth is, they didn't have the capacity in that moment to handle me staying steady. In all honesty, I think they wanted me to get ramped up and upset and defensive or fight back because, I don't know, maybe that would make them feel better about their emotional mismanagement if I was able to join them and do the same. This mocking and this joking can happen in different ways as well. If you're sharing something, a boundary that you have, something that's important to you, and the person comes back to you and is like, oh, well, look at you and your boundaries. Aren't you just so emotionally intelligent? Aren't you just so on top of it all? Or whatever that is. Whenever someone is mocking you for something serious, whenever they're trying to make a joke out of or make you the joke out of something that's important to you, that's a really emotionally immature way of handling something. But again, don't take the bait. Stay in your peace. Stay in your groundedness. Stay steady. Say to them something like, hey, I'm trying to bring up something serious and important, and I'd appreciate if you'd respect that. You don't have to over-explain. Just stay sturdy and steady and grounded in your truth. The next way that emotionally immature people avoid accountability is they just tell you that you're overreacting, that you're being too emotional, that you're making too big a deal out of it. I was talking to someone recently who had had a conflict with her mom, and they were talking about some things, and the conversation was getting kind of heated. And then her mom started saying really hurtful, really harmful things to the extent of, you ruined my life. You're a terrible daughter. I would have been so much better if I'd never had you in the first place. Like truly, deeply harmful, hurtful, deeply core wounding things. And then a little while later, this person brought it back up with her mother and said, hey, Mom, I need an apology for that. I need you to acknowledge what you did. What you said was way off base and really, really hurtful. And I actually can't believe that you would say something like that to me. And her mom's reply? Oh, don't be so sensitive. People just say things when they're upset. Don't get so upset about it. Don't overreact so much. Now, it might sound like they're being logical, like, yeah, it's true that people do say things in the heat of the moment that they don't mean, but to tell someone that they're not allowed to be hurt by it, that's not reasonable, that's not logical, that's gaslighting. And how you'll know it's gaslighting is if you walk away from conversations like that, wondering if it's actually true, wondering if you were being too sensitive or overreacting after someone did something that was, when you actually think about it, clearly hurtful. So instead, stay steady, hold your peace, and simply say, it may not have been a big deal to you, but it was a big deal to me. The fourth way emotionally immature people avoid accountability is they turn into victim mode. And you've had this happen. You've come to someone and said, this really bothered me when you said that, or I really didn't like it when you did that, or could you not say things like that? It really impacts me and hurts my feelings. And then they come back with, oh, I guess I'm just a terrible person. I guess I can't do anything right. Everyone's always blaming me. Everything's always my fault. And now initially, it might sound like they're just being vulnerable with you and they're just sharing how they feel. But really, it's avoidance of any kind of responsibility. And now you're the one that's trying to comfort them and reassure them and make them feel better for something that they did that hurt you. So instead of getting derailed by this, stay steady, stay grounded, and simply say to them, hey, this is something that happened that bothered me, and I'd like to talk about it and work it out, but I can't do that unless you're willing to acknowledge your part in it. That's it. That's all you need to start with. You're allowed to hold the space for your feelings, for what's going on with you, and not abandon them immediately when someone talks about and turns the focus onto what's going on with them. Our next way that emotionally immature people avoid accountability is one that comes up often with couples. And you may not have fully spotted it before, but as soon as I say it, you are going to see it, you're going to recognize it, and it's probably happening more than you'd like it to be. And this one is when you bring up something in the present, and then they immediately bring up something from the past. So you bring forward your feelings about something they just said. You say, that comment really hurt. And they immediately reply with, well, remember what you did last year? And then suddenly you're in a back and forth of who did what when, who's to blame for what happened where. You're going down this rabbit hole of all these past tit for tats, what's happening, who did what, who's to blame, who's at fault. And you've completely derailed from the conversation, the issue, and the potential for accountability, responsibility, and repair with what just happened. So what do you do when you bring up a concern from the present and then they start talking about all kinds of things from the past? You stay steady, you stay centered, and you hold the timeline. We can talk about that later, but right now, I would like us to focus on the present and what just happened. You don't need to let yourself get caught up in the he said, she said about what happened when and who's right and who's wrong and who did what. That's just a distraction from what is happening now, and it's not going to actually solve what's happening now or prevent any future things like this if all we're doing is going back and forth with the past. So redirect back to the original conversation and let them know that we can talk about whatever later, but right now we're going to focus on this. And the next way that emotionally immature people avoid accountability is they say nothing back. So you've had an argument, you've had a conflict, you've both said things that you don't mean, you both got caught up in the heat of the moment, you both were critical, you both raised your voices, and then the conversation ended and you went away and had some time to reflect and realize that you weren't happy with how you handled it, that you feel bad about some of the things you said, and you come back to them and you take responsibility and you try to repair and you want to clean it up and you own your part and you apologize. And their reply, it's fine. Or, okay. Or at best, thank you. And you're left standing there like, and? No reflection, no ownership. But this lack of reply isn't them just being neutral. It's leaving you carrying the full emotional burden for something that wasn't entirely on you. You become the one who's always reaching out a hand, repairing, regulating, while they just keep themselves away from or even think of themselves as above it all. And over time, if this keeps happening, this starts to create this quiet but unhealthy power imbalance. So remember at the beginning, I was telling you about that guy that I dated who would handle things in this way. Now, I didn't catch it at first because we didn't get into big conflict very often. But the few times that it did happen where we would trigger each other and there'd be some kind of upset and we'd both get worked up and end up saying not very kind things and raising our voices to a volume that wasn't kind or respectful, And then things would kind of die down and we'd both go away and I would settle down and then in that space realize that I wasn't happy with how I handled it, that I regretted some of the things that I said, and would come back and take responsibility for my part and apologize and let him know, I'm sorry that I said that. I got caught up in the emotion and that wasn't fair and that wasn't okay and I should have handled that better and I didn't mean that. And, do my best to repair it as well as possible. And his reply every time would be, okay, thanks. And I would be left there, standing there, feeling like, what just happened? And it would create that power imbalance. And yes, there were other things in the relationship as well that created that power imbalance, which is why we are no longer together. But what I noticed is that I stopped wanting to bring anything up at all because I knew that it wasn't going to go really anywhere, that it wouldn't ever get fully resolved in a way that felt like it was really repaired. So knowing that if someone opts out of taking any responsibility or accountability for their part every time, that's emotional immaturity and it's avoidance. And you are allowed to stop overfunctioning for someone who isn't willing to meet you halfway. If you've experienced any of these in any of your relationships, know that it's not because you're overreacting. It's not because you're overly sensitive. It's not because you're too much. It's because you're craving honest, emotionally mature, authentic connection. And that's not something that you need to justify, over-explain, or apologize for. But the hard truth is, you can't control how someone responds or doesn't respond. But you can get clearer and stronger at knowing what's yours to carry and what's not. And the best, most powerful part is that when you stop overfunctioning, over-explaining, or over-apologizing, you get to stay steady and hold your peace. And if working on staying steady and holding your center when there's all kinds of things happening around you is something that you want to work on, then mindfulness is a really powerful place to start. By just calming your nervous system in general is going to help you not get so rattled no matter whomever or whatever is going on around you. And so I have this 10-minute guided mindfulness exercise for you. It's free. It's in the description below. It's a great one to get you started and to learn how to just start separating yourself from whatever it is that's going on out here so that you can hold that peace and not get so caught up in the chaos. That 10-minute guided mindfulness exercise, it's free. It's in the description below. Make sure you grab that and like the video if you got something out of it. Subscribe so we can stay connected. Let me know what connected with you from this. And until next time, take good care of yourself. Take good care of those around you. Bye for now.